Welcome back, America. I'm Hugh Hewitt in the Lee Factor Studio, joined by Jonathan Williams, president of the American Legislative Exchange Council, ALEC, ALEC.org/Hugh. If you want to sign up for the ALEC newsletter, Jonathan joins me a couple of times a month to talk about what's going on in the states. Jonathan, I'm going to start at with the SAVE Act because it's on everybody's mind. I got criticized yesterday. I didn't ask John Thune about it because I know what the leader said, which is he'll vote for it when it comes up. What do you think about the SAVE Act? I don't think it's got 60 votes.
Well, regardless of the vote counting, Hugh, in Washington, I think it's got the broad backing of the American people, which is the important thing. I mean, a lot of times we're here talking about common sense ALEC policy ideas. I mean, this has to be right up there with the 90% issue to say that citizens only should be the ones that are voting, and we need to have valid voter ID, just as the states are working on. This is a really important item. Now, if that's the plank that some of the progressive Democrats in the Senate want to walk in an election year, I think that's up to them. But I mean, the American people are pretty strongly in favor of something as common sense as this.
ALEC has for a long time had the only citizens vote model policy. How many states have adopted that, Jonathan?
Well, we're in a number of states this year. We just adopted it this last year as a model policy. So we're in the infancy of it, but we're seeing tons of states introduce it. We've had our task force director of our new process and procedures task force out at testifying on the policy. Kansas has been a real leader in this area. And so be on the lookout because I think you're going to see a lot of states get across the finish line this session.
I would actually prefer it be done at the state level because then there is no constitutional issue about whether or not the SAVE Act works when it's mandated by Congress without a spending clause attached to it. So I hope states follow your lead on the Model Act. Let's go to the census next, Jonathan. What is this new census data telling us about 2030 and the reapportionment?
Well, when you look at the political side of it, really bad news if you're in California, right? I mean, they're doubling down on just silly economic policies with this wealth tax and making things even worse. But if current trends continue, California is going to lose potentially 4 or more U.S. House districts in the reapportionment of 2030. And keep in mind, California's been a state, as you know, since 1850. And every single decade, they gained multiple seats in many of those decades. They only lost their very first seat in state history in the last reapportionment in 2020. So for conservatives out there that don't want another Nancy Pelosi in Congress, this is probably very good news. But it's once again reiterating the point that we make every single year here in rich states, poor states, which is Americans continue to vote with their feet away from states like California with the high taxes and big government policies.
I'm afraid they're going to start leaving Virginia. John, I'm a Virginian, you're a Virginian, even though I'm in California for a few weeks and I teach here every other year, I'm a Virginian. And I know that Spanberger was not my choice, but Governor Spanberger ran as a moderate. Is she governing as a moderate?
Well, the legislature is still certainly not governing as a moderate with all the different bills being introduced on whether it's the tax increases, bringing back a death tax, as we've talked about, the regional greenhouse gas initiative, and those things are not making it to her desk in many cases yet. So the jury's still out. We'll see what she does with some of these. I mean, during the campaign, for instance, a massive issue for job creation in Virginia is the right to work status, right? Or you're going to have a forced union workforce. This is something that she said she would not sign during the campaign. We'll see if she actually follows that. And as you know, Hugh, governors are going to a lot of times let laws become law without their signature. So there's a way to weasel out of that, I suppose. But it's a good point that she did campaign as a moderate against Winsome Sears. And based on what's happening with her party there in the Virginia General Assembly, she's going to be put to that test awfully soon.
Jonathan, do you think that they are more likely to make big mistakes in Virginia because they feel that it's not as mobile a population as California? California's population is very mobile. And the people who made incomes left, and now the billionaires are leaving, and capital is mobile. But if you're working for the federal government and you're in the northern suburbs of Virginia, you got to stay there. Are they indifferent to those people?
Well, there is that argument to say, where are you going to go, Maryland or D.C.? And it could be arguably worse. Although some of the proposals you see out of Richmond right now would make Virginia the high tax state in the region. So you could see a reversal of the folks that have left Maryland and D.C. over the years to escape to the freedom loving side of the Potomac, as we used to call it in Virginia. And you could see a reversal of that. But keep in mind, I was just with Governor Patrick Morrisey this week in Charleston, West Virginia, and you had Virginia losing population, Glenn Youngkin trying to address that. West Virginia had lost population uninterrupted for 100 years. And this most recent batch of census data showed that West Virginia actually gained 6,000 residents on net from the other states. And so Harpers Ferry, just west of the Metro DC area here in Jefferson County, West Virginia, I think it's a great bet if you're a real estate investor in Jefferson County right now, because I think that's going to become the low-cost, limited government area for people that still want to commute to the D.C. metro.
Well, you anticipated me. I saved West Virginia for last because I knew you were there in the last week. And I think you're going to see not a few people head for Harper's Ferry and beyond. It's not a bad commute. The general manager of the Salem station in the Beltway lives there and drives in every morning. It's not terrible commutes, like a California commute, actually. So what's going on in West Virginia that's attracting everyone besides the taxes?
Well, and Governor Morrisey wants to continue to cut taxes this session, too, to make that differential with Virginia even bigger. The other big thing is that this coming school year, the Hope Scholarship plan that you've talked to our great board member, Senator Patricia Rucker, who's really the heroine of national school choice movement as the first universal school choice state with that Hope Scholarship, that becomes truly universal and available to all families this coming school year. Now, there's some efforts from some big government folks in West Virginia that would like to impede its progress and try to weaken it during this legislative session. But thankfully, people like Senator Rucker and Governor Morrisey are standing strong. So you have that combination of school choice, which benefits obviously families and kids. And you have the lower taxes, limited government regulations, and it becomes a really unescapable value creation to live on the West Virginia side of the line versus the Virginia side of the line. And, you have access to Dulles Airport, and especially for those commuters, as we were talking about, Hugh, that maybe only need to come to D.C. 2 or 3 days a week, it becomes a whole lot more manageable. So, I'm a big fan of what's going on in West Virginia, and I think the folks in Richmond ought to pay awfully close attention to that.
Last question, Jonathan. By the way, Senator Rucker is one of our favorite guests at the annual ALEC get-together. She and Danny Perez are a 1-2 punch, the Speaker of the Florida House. But how many people are using the Hope Scholarship? Do you have an actual head count yet of how many people have raised their hand in West Virginia and said, I want that?
It's a really impressive number. I think they've cleared the 10,000 student hurdle here, which is really important as they continue to build progress and it becomes truly universal in this coming school year. I think you're going to see those numbers added to. And you add that to the great new numbers just out of Texas this week, yesterday, that you might have seen reported, where they've already had a couple of tens of thousands of individuals now joining that new education freedom plan that they just opened up.
Yeah, I did not know that, but it's the greatest thing going on in the country is education freedom. And in fact, the incentive that Ted Cruz put into the big, beautiful bill is working all across the United States. I'm sure ALEC is helping it do that. Go to alec.org/U if you want to hear from Jonathan and his colleagues over at the American Legislative Exchange Council about what's going on in the state. And the states are a great sponsor. I love talking to Jonathan, even though he is from Michigan. We still like to talk to him. Don't go anywhere, America. I'll be right back, except over to alec.org/U.